Okay, so we're going to have a quick look at Sum+It, the quick quoting app for the roof truss, floor truss, and engineered wood industry. Today we're just going to have a look at roof trusses. So this is the screen when you first sign on. You can tab through the different sections here on the left-hand side. At this point in time, I already have all of our labor variables set up. As you can see, there's quite a few things that we can use to match your company's labor. Floor truss variables. Most plants, the floor trusses are different, so you have a different labor calculation. So we can set that up, no problem. And also your lumber is input in here. Plate costs. This is all password protected, so if you have multiple users, you don't have to worry about someone coming in and sabotaging anything or making any changes without your knowledge. There's a product tab in here. So you enter your I-joist, rim board, beams, any miscellaneous items you can add, delivery charges, crane charges, engineering charges, you can add or whatever you want in here. We have columns and LSL studs in ours, and then you can add your hanger inventory in here. Um, for the example, I'm going to use just a simple little house, not necessarily something that you would build, but it just makes it easy for the example. Okay, we do have a little database in here. So you can pick customers to save you some typing. You can call these things whatever you want. Most of the time, people just use the number that your like your truss software will generate. Demo junk. I'll just call it demo junk instead of roof demo. You can have it's a good idea to estimate or to input your designer. It's easier to track that way. You can also sort jobs by the estimator. You can do residential, commercial. These are default settings. If you're selling into the US, we have a database set up for the US also. But this is we'll just stick with 64.75 and 8.4 for rain load. Okay, now I'll go back to this example for a second. You'll find when you first get started using it, if you work off PDFs, you're going to, what I did was I started writing, like I start breaking these things down into different sections. You can see I have little notes here. Now I had started off by writing these just on a notepad. But after a while, I started using it more and more. I can just go off the plan and I don't have to make any more notes. But it works off of so you're gonna see like span and run. It works off of sections, but it's more than an area input. There's quite a bit of there's over 500,000 lines of data in the database, so there's quite a bit going on in the background. But in this case here, so section 1, you've got a 30 by 50 foot. It's just basically hip, and there's a tray ceiling in here that affects 10 foot of the run. Section 2 is a 20 by 20 cathedral ceiling. There's a bearing wall here, so we don't have to worry about a girder there. This is just a simple little 12 by 6 run, but it'll have a girder. And then the section over the garage is just a 24 by 30 run. But I changed it up a bit. It's got some attic trusses and a different heel condition. So I'll just get to inputting this. So section 1, it's real simple. So you do 30-foot span, 50-foot run. Slope is the 612. This condition, it's a slider. There are only 4 heel conditions. There isn't a big difference between a 2-foot heel or a 1'6" heel. So That's why we're not making anybody input a actual dimension there. You can change the spacing if you want, but in this case here, we'll do 24 inches on center. So in this case, the end conditions are both hit. And so the end slopes or the side slopes are 612, but in this case here, the end slopes are also 612. You can have a dual slope if you want. Um, we have, I mean, we default to Atlantic hip. There are 4 other hip types, but we can enter whatever you want. Okay, so we'll just hit that add button. In this case, we had a 10-foot, 10 foot of the run is affected by a tray ceiling. So what we do is we have these pre-boxed modifiers. So we just, in this case, we just select the tray ceiling. That's going to affect 10 foot of the run. And that's it. That's it for section 1. We'll just move on to section 2 now, which was a 20-foot span, right? 20-foot run. Also 612 slider is the heel type. We're going to stick with the 24 inches on center. N1 is a gable. Gable sheathing is an option if you use it, but I'll just turn that off for now. And then N2, there's a bearing wall there, so you can leave it blank. If you do valley trusses, you could select the valley. If you do girder, you don't have to do girder. There's bearing wall there, but so in this case here, I'll just select the valley. It's going to ask you for the bottom chord cutting slope. So obviously the roof slope is going to be 6, but the bottom chord cutting slope is also a 612 in this case. And then just hit add. And then as far as a modifier goes, in this case, it's a scissor truss, and that's affecting 20 feet of the run. That's it for section 2. Let's just move on to section 3 now, and I'll just bring that PDF up again. So in this case here, again, it's a 12-foot run, 12-foot span, sorry, 6-foot run. So there's going to be a girder truss and a valley if you build valleys. Okay, so 12-foot span, 6-foot run, 612 slope. Now there's 2 ways that you can enter a girder and a valley. You can enter it here under the end condition, but I like to enter it down below. First of all, because once you input this, the only on the end conditions, once it's added, the only way you can change the end conditions is you have to delete the whole section in here and re-input the whole thing. But if you enter it down here, you can add them and delete them. So in this case, this is a 30-foot tie-in. It's going to default to here. We can select what we want it to default to. It's going to be a minimum of 2-ply girder. Now, if I want to say, from experience, I say, geez, I want to make that a 3-ply girder just to be safe. So I can change the default to a 3-ply girder. If you select a 1-ply, so basically it'll bump it up if it's to what it needs to be, but you can override it if you want, and just to give you a little bit of a buffer. But you can't do that up here. So when you enter it as an end condition, it's going to tell you what it needs. So it's going to go through the database. It's going to say 64.8 ground snow load, 8.4 rain, 12-foot girder carrying a 30-foot trusses. It says the database will say it needs to be a 2-ply truss. You can also add the valley in here, 12-foot with a 612 slope. And the reason why I like doing that is because if they come back and say there's a change and the people want to remove the valleys, it's just a matter of turning it off and then recalculating the price. You can add ladders too, just showing you there are ladders 2x4 with 2x6 fascia in case you build ladders. Okay, and then that's it for section 3. In section 4, a little bit more going on here, but it's 24 by 30 is the run. And in this case, it was a 12-12 slope with an end vertical. I'm going to keep it at 24 inch on center. So you'll see there's a couple notes here. You get truss height of 14'3". Now this is just to give you an idea of, what your shipping restrictions are. So the majority of Canada, they can't ship over 12 foot high. Um, I mean, everybody's different, but this is just really to help you out a bit. So it's just, so when I see this here, I just say, well, okay, I'm gonna have to piggyback this for sure. So we have a modifier that's piggyback. And then you'll see here 16 trusses. So so the left end's a gable truss. If I want a truss up against the wall, I'll leave this. Um, if per se some people want, they don't want to put that extra, they don't want that extra truss, they'll have them put nailers on there. Whoops. So you can just shorten up the run just to reduce the number of trusses. It's entirely up to you. It's just to help you kind of have an idea of what's going on. In this case here, just leave N2 blank. You can add as many modifiers as you want, but in this case, we've got a piggyback that affects 30 feet of the run and an attic truss, which also affects 30 feet of the run. Okay, and that's it. That's the 4 sections. You can add delivery in here if you want. You can change the markup here if you like. You can also add delivery as another item. I'll show you on the quote tab. But because there's no layout, you want to add a lot of notes to this. The auto description, I use that for garages and stuff, but I'll show that in another video. So all I do here is I just say, I'd say tray ceiling, in the, I don't know what this is, say a living room, cathedral ceiling in the master bedroom, and attic trusses over the garage. So roof trusses. I found once how some people were a little more open to not receiving a layout, you know, than others. If you get any pushback from it, what I found the best thing to do is to do some older jobs, um, and show them the layout, and then also use the output from this, and they kind of get used to what they're getting. It's just, you know, it's still an old school industry, so you do get pushback from it. And then on the quote tab here, you can add some items. Like we'll have a large hanger from the girder. And then some smaller hangers to pick up the 30-foot trusses. LJS. And then some tie downs for the attic truss. Preview. Okay, so that's just the preview of it. So you print a PDF. Um, you just want to make sure that it saves the quote. You can go back, so it's been saved. So I'll just reset this. You can go back into old quotes, and it searches by demo junk is you can search by anything. Like in this case, job number was demo junk. You can search by home. Could search by designer. In this case, Paul was the designer. Demo junk. And then you can restore the quote. So if there's ever a change, it just brings it back up. And then you can make the changes and reprint it. There's user modifiers. So if you get something like an attic with a LVL bottom chord or an attic with a floor truss chord, something that's basically, if there's something specific to your area that you want to add in, like I know in Kelowna they added in flat trusses with parapet ends. Um, but I'll go over that in another video. I just wanted to touch on that just briefly, just so you could see. Okay, that's about it. You can leave comments or questions down below, and I'll monitor it and try to answer any that I can.